Hello, VC. It's Eric. I'm here to do my submission to Andy's Vinyl Den. He had asked us to create a mixtape that is used to introduce somebody to a music scene or a music style. This book, by the way, I've had for a number of years, edited by Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth, and it is shaped like a mixtape, and it's about the art of mixtapes. And there's some text in here, but there's also a lot of writing or a lot of images showing various mixtapes. I am of the age that when I was in college, my friends and I did trade around some mixtapes. Unfortunately, those are long gone because hubris, because not realizing how important some of those things can be to you later in life. Can't hold on to everything, but hold on to the things that there's one copy of. Don't worry so much about the stuff that there's 3 million copies of. So, as the book says, love is a mixtape. This is my mixtape to a genre that I love, that I've spoken about before, that I know Andy commented on before, that is near and dear to my heart because it is a genre that mixes things that I love and care about, those being punk rock, energy, attitude, waving your middle finger, or two of these at authority, and country, folk, and blues, which I will refer to as roots music, but largely country music, which oftentimes deals with the same subject matter as punk rock, deals with disappointment, heartbreak, loss, deals with crappy jobs and broke down pickup trucks and trains and prison. Basically all the stuff punk rock talks about. I often refer to punk rock as being country music sped up and with the hubris of youth. Okay, so 10 songs by 10 bands. And to do most of these, I'm going to do something that probably makes a little bit of sense, because back in the day when you were making a mixtape, you either made it off a vinyl or you made it off a cassette tape. So starting off with what I consider to be ground zero for cowpunk, which is a term I know that those who were involved in the scene didn't really like. And let me be clear, when I talk about cowpunk, I mean country-style songs played with punk attitude, with punk speed, and with punk rhythm. So very basic, very fast. The problem with cowpunk was it was too cow for the punks and too punk for the cows, right? So at any rate, Rank and File, Long Gone Dead, and that would be my song to pick. This is the cassette tape from, this is like 1980. So the Kinman brothers, who were in a band called the Dills, who are in a Cheech and Chong film, worked together with Alejandro Escovedo of a band called the Nuns, who is now a well-renowned solo artist, and they moved to Austin and they formed Rank and File. Great stuff on this album, highly recommended. This is a must-have for anybody that's interested in checking out cowpunk, and Long Gone Dead is a great, great track. Now, they put out 3 albums. The third album's not so great. The first 2 are must-haves. There is a Rhino CD of both of the albums, and you can find the vinyl if you look around. Later on, they did have a band member named Junior Brown, who's gone on to some renown in the country world himself. So, Rank and File, Long Gone Dead. This is kind of poppy. It's kind of produced. And I don't know if anybody's out there playing these songs. I kind of hope that young bands out there that are discovering their love of the Ramones and of Hank Williams are going to go, oh, this stuff needs to be played. This stuff needs to be checked out. So, Rank and File, good stuff. All right, number 2. Blood on the Saddle, Fresh Blood. Now, usually I show their Poison Love album, which I think is better, but I don't have that in cassette. So many great tracks on this album, and it's kind of hard to read the label because, punk rockers, they're going to do things to make it obnoxious. But off of this album, I'm going to pick, there's so much good stuff on here, including a cover of Rawhide and a cover of Folsom Prison Blues. But let's go with Endless Highway, which is kind of a more atmospheric, slow song. It's almost a blues number. At first, I didn't really care for this album, but it's grown on me. Everything of the original Blood on the Saddle group from the 80s is well worth checking out, especially if the album includes their bass player, one Annette Zalaskins, who was in a band called The Bang, later became the Bangles. So that was her brush with fame, and more recently she's played with them at some of their reunion shows, the Bangles that is, to kind of close the loop of their history. Good stuff, well worth checking out. All of this stuff that I'm showing I wish would get a deluxe vinyl reissue with extras, liner notes, whatever, and get the love that it deserves. I'm going to drink some water. All right. So Rank and File came out of the San Francisco, San Diego punk scene. Blood and Saddle was part of the LA punk scene. This band was also part of the LA punk scene. This is the Divine Horsemen, and this is the Devil's River EP. And there's some great stuff on here. I would pick the song Devil's River, which I just love. It's an amazing song. It's so good. There is an EP that goes along with this called Middle of the Night, which is on here, that has a couple of covers. Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone? Cowpunk with the kind of Lee Hazelwood, Nancy Sinatra, sweet female vocals, high-pitched female vocals, and growling male vocals. This band grew out of the band The Flesh Eaters. A horror punk's gone country, something we'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah, love this album. Great stuff. Once again, deserves a big deluxe reissue. If you can find the albums or the cassettes out on SST Records. There was some compact discs of their stuff released. Not all of it got released, but it is out there if you want to look and find it. All right. So, I know that some of you guys out there are into the desert rock. You like that Queens of the Stone Age sound. Well, there's a whole scene that came before that was part of the 80s. Paisley Underground, which was a psych pop revival, came out of the Davis scene, which was kind of this desert scene. And these guys are probably from Arizona, right? But I believe they're from Davis. This is Naked Prey with Under the Blue Marlin. And the song I would pick off of here is called A Stranger Never Says Goodbye. Just a great growling kind of country western song. This was on Frontier Records. This is the record label that Suicidal Tendencies were originally on. Great stuff. Not as well remembered as they should be, but highly, highly recommended. Okay, so now we get into something tricky because I don't actually have cassettes by some of these bands. What I do have, and I have shown this before, is the Enigma Variations compilation, which in a lot of ways is one of about 4 albums that showcase the cowpunk scene. And this one, we're talking about the band Green on Red. And let me see if I can find it here. The song in here is called 16 Ways, but and I should have grabbed this beforehand, I know. This is bad YouTubing. They had a song called Food, Gas, and Lodging that became the title track for Allison Anders' film of the same name. Highly recommended stuff. Once again, they're more in that Paisley Underground kind of desert scene, but definitely bar band, cow punk kind of music. Right. Also from here, we've got the Screaming Sirens. Once again, I probably should have pulled this out before I got here, but and everything's out of order. Here it is. Screaming Sirens, who were in this film, The Running Kind, which you can find in full on YouTube. It's not a great film, but I actually really like it. It's a sweet little coming-of-age story from the 80s, featuring the Screaming Sirens. And a bunch of women from the punk scene that formed a punk band that was more oriented towards country. They do a great cover of Your Good Girl's Gonna Go Bad, which is the track I would pick. And for those of you who are into the 90s alt country scene, Rosie Flores was in the Screaming Sirens. Good stuff. Once again, their albums are out there if you can find them. Good stuff, though. Well worth checking out. Okay. Another one from this compilation, one track. So one of the things I'm going to talk about with cowpunk is some bands had one great country cowpunk song. And in this instance, there's an artist named Scott Goddard who was in the band The Surf Punks, who has a song called Cowpunk, which is a satirical look at the cowpunks. And it references Hank Williams, and it's a great pop song. You can find it on YouTube. You should check it out. All right. This is getting a little longer than I had wanted, but we're going to move along. Okay. Next up, we have got a more recent band that I only have in compact disc. This is the Earps. Here come the Earps. The song is called Devil's Bed. Just great country sped up to punk kind of speeds with that punk attitude. Really cool band. I wish they had done more. This is from 2007. And this is probably the latest album on this list. In the 90s, cowpunk really morphed into what we now know as alternative country. Several people that were in cowpunk bands have been glommed into that alt country scene. People like John Doe from X, Alejandro Escovedo from Rank and File, Dave Alvin from the Blasters. So there is a continuum from punk rock to alt country. And additionally, there is a continuum from horror punk to cowpunk. They're both genre-based. They're both dealing with emotion, fear, depression, anguish, all of those kinds of things. The Jet Blackberries, who I've talked a lot about. This is their second album, Desperate Fires. This is up on Bandcamp now if you want to check it out. It might actually be on Spotify as well. Song off this I would pick is, oh God, there's so many. I'm going to go with So Hard to Leave. Hey, somebody out there that does country music or roots rock or whatever, cover some of the songs off these guys' back catalog. They're just great music. But they start off as the horror punk band New Math, which were more of a horror, psych, pop, whatever. They were part of their local punk scene. Great album. They put out 3 great albums. I've talked about them a lot. I've talked about a lot of these bands a lot. Huge fan. They're friends of mine. They've changed my life in a lot of ways. And I want more people to go and track down their stuff and check it out. If you see this in the cutout bin at your vinyl store, or you see it for a couple bucks in your move to give it a spin, please do. All right. So finally, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's number 9. This is the Vandals. Peace to Vandalism. Now, the Vandals were a SoCal punk band, and they had a couple of cowpunk songs, most of which were definitely more satirical about the genre. You know, there's always something impressive when people can laugh at themselves to me. A song called Mohawk Town, but I want to talk about Urban Struggle. Urban Struggle is about the punks versus the country music fans at the Cuckoo's Nest, a LA County area, Orange County area punk venue. It's an amazing track. And if you've ever seen this movie that I keep talking about, Dudes, it's the song that opens this movie. This is the cowpunk film. A couple of New York City punks move west and run afoul of a gang of killer rednecks and have to get revenge. That's kind of the bare bones of the story. It's got a soundtrack that's filled with heavy metal and punk rock and cowpunk. And it brings me to the last track. And here's the cassette tape because I'm showing all this stuff. This is an LA punk band called Legal Weapon, whom I love, who is greatly underappreciated in my opinion. And they have a song on here called Time Forgot You, which is my all-time favorite song. It is the song I want played at my funeral. It is the song that really kind of defines how I see my life, for better or worse. And it's got a little bit of rock, a little bit of punk, a little bit of metal, and a whole lot of country in it. And of all of these tracks I've talked about, this is the one that I really hope more people discover. It's hard to find. It's only available on the soundtrack. It's not on Spotify. It's not on Amazon. It's not in any of those places. But I love it dearly. All right, Andy, I always dig your channel, brother, and I always do my best to support. I showed the Tales from the Dead Wax comics in my last video, so everyone go check those out, and I'll talk to you all later. if any of this stuff moves you, have questions, you want directions where to find this stuff on the net to check out samples or hear it, leave comments below. I want to hear from people. So until next time, thanks. I'll talk to y'all later.